Good evening. I'd like to call to order the virtual regular meeting for the Medina City School District. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. If everybody will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Chambers, if you'll call roll call, please.
Mr. Hilberg. Here. Ms. Parkhurst.
Here.
Mr. Ross.
Here.
Mr. Skidmore.
Here.
Ms. Pavlik.
Here.
Thank you.
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of November 16th, 2020, and the minutes from the work session of December 7th, 2020.
I'll second.
Are there any changes, additions, or modifications to the minutes? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Chambers, roll call, please.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to make I'm sorry, are there any additions, removals, or modifications to the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Mr. Chambers?
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Thank you.
At this time, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Sable for his informational and discussion items.
Good evening. I'm glad that we were able to get everybody together this week, especially with the upcoming holiday season upon us. I just want to briefly give a COVID update before we proceed with a presentation this evening. With the county going red at the end of last week, we did return athletic competitions, as did our surrounding districts and the Greater Cleveland Conference. This is a great outlet for our students. I know sometimes it's hard to understand how we could have students in competing athletically when we don't have students in our actual buildings and we're learning virtual in our buildings. The reason why is because the athletics are much more manageable with small groups of students that are under strict protocol that began at the very beginning of the season. Not only is it a more manageable, easy control situation, but I personally believe it's an important outlet for our students in a time when so much has been taken away from them, for them to be able to continue to participate in not just sports, but show choir and other clubs and activities as well is extremely important. So if you saw, our boys had a big win the other night against Brunswick with a last second shot. I congratulate them. It's nice to be back in competition. In terms of the school district, I did send out a communication to families on Friday, just giving an update as we head into the winter break. Currently, our timeline for our return to face-to-face learning is January 14th. We are in the process of working with our teacher district leadership team to determine what the best return to school should be. And the reason why we're having that conversation is because we were in a hybrid model at Root as well as the high school prior to closing and going online. The feedback we've received from many families in regards to the online learning is that students are getting a much larger and better amount of instruction. So we're having some collaborative conversation of how we could bring some of that to a hybrid model, because we know for sure at the high school, we've got the issue with the social distancing and being able to fit everybody in there. I don't have many details to share at this time, other than I want the board to know that Tina did organize those district level meetings, and we have started that conversation, and we'll have more information as we head into the next couple weeks. The goal is to have a definite communication the end of the second week, so parents know exactly what's going to be happening in terms of the return to school. I am hopeful with the county turning red again that we will continue along this positive path. I do have to tell you, though, that I have concerns. We saw large spikes after Halloween. We saw large spikes after Thanksgiving. So with the upcoming holiday season, it does concern me the potential of spikes that we may see from those holidays as well. So I'm going to put out a plea to our community. We do want our kids returning to school. We need your help to make that happen. And that means following COVID protocol so that we can get the numbers down in the county and ensure that our students get back into the buildings. Any questions from the board in regards to COVID or COVID updates? Great. At this time, I want to thank the Impact Group for joining us this evening. Tom and Chris are two important people we've been working with through the Impact Group. We mentioned a month or two ago how thrilled we are to get back to a focus on academics and education. Obviously, we've done a lot of important work with COVID, but the reason why we're here is to provide the best education for the students of Medina. They are assisting us in the development of our Portrait of a Graduate, as well as the development of a new strategic plan. You're going to find that that process is going to be rolling out shortly after we return from winter break. So it's literally just around the corner. It's going to be an exciting time heading into next year, because not only will COVID be gone, but we'll be stepping into a new strategic plan, as well as having a Portrait of a Graduate to direct that plan. Our intent, as we've said all along, is to have community, staff involvement, business leaders in the community. And obviously with COVID, that can be a challenge. We are going to be using a virtual format similar to how we're running our board meeting here in order to be able to engage people. The downside to that is you do miss a little bit of the personal interaction. I think we were joking in our last meeting, the bagels and the water pop that's there. But I think people are at a point where they're getting very used to this virtual format. And quite honestly, I'm hoping that it helps us with our attendance at the meetings, because it makes it more convenient for the people that are going to participate on those committees. So at this time, I want to turn things over to Tom and Chris so they can share where we're at as well as where we're headed with our process.
Thank you, Aaron. Really appreciate you having us tonight. Hope everybody has all their holiday shopping done with Amazon. I don't know about you, I can hardly get in my neighborhood with all the Amazon vans running around. It seems like everyone is going that route this year. So hope you guys are doing well, getting ready for the holidays. We are so excited about the portrait project as well as the strategic plan moving forward. As we talked about with you all a while back, there's two big goals to this. One is to create a clear vision and a clear plan that's your communities, that the community has actively had a chance to weigh in, participate in, and really much have as their own. The second piece is to have a very actionable plan to move forward, which is measurable, who is doing what, when, and is it successful? Those are all the things we're going to get going. What we'd like to do is just to briefly go through the process with you tonight so you have a clear idea the direction we're going to go. So, Chris, do you want to begin maybe going through some of the larger building blocks to go forward with the portrait as well as the strategic plan?
Absolutely can. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here, and hopefully everybody will be able to see.
Success.
Are we good? All right.
Yes.
All right. So again, good evening, everyone. Tom and I are very excited to talk tonight a little bit about what we call the learner profile. You've heard it been referred to as a portrait of a graduate. We're excited to do this work for the team at Medina City Schools. So first and foremost, why choose the portrait project? Why are schools across the state and really across the nation choosing to engage in this work? The answer is simple: the need for shifting skills, global competitiveness, artificial intelligence, automation of basic skills in the manufacturing world, the gig economy. They've all been game changers for our students. They're currently game changers for us as adults. We base a lot of our work on a groundbreaking study by McKinsey from 2018 that concluded there'll be a premium on skills that only the human mind possesses in the future. And we certainly want to arm our students not only with the academic content knowledge that we know is essential, that the state mandates and has mandated, and will continue to test, but we also want to arm them with the essential skills that will make them highly productive no matter the field that they choose, whether that's college, career, military, et cetera. The presentation that you see right now, we will utilize with our 100-person planning team. We'll get into a little bit later how that's going to function and how we think it can function effectively. But we will ask the folks that we're working with as representatives of your community to share stories, to share anecdotes of their personal experience workforce-wise, needing folks who are armed with advanced skill sets. Tom and I do a lot of engagement for school districts all of Ohio. We also do a lot of engagement for businesses, nonprofits, boards of developmental disabilities, cities and municipalities. And one of the common frames of reference in all of the engagement that we do in varying communities, large, small, rural, city, is that business leaders are aching for high quality individuals who can not only do the work, but who can collaborate and can persist and can create and develop a worldly mindset. We hear stories often about college graduates and high school graduates who are armed to the teeth with what we would call the X's and O's. They know the quadratic formula. They know indirect characterization. But what they can't do is shake your hand. They can't have a conversation with a group of strangers at a board meeting and talk intelligently and debate a position or remain critical at a position. And so that's some of the work that we're going to attempt to do with our planning committee. We know that today's kindergarten students, I believe I have that right, they'll be graduates in the year 2038. None of us has any clue what the world will look like, what the economy will look like at that point in time. But we do know that there are 3 core skills that we can arm students with that we'll speak to in the creation of our portrait. A deep self-knowledge, the ability to discover their personal strengths and weaknesses. Emotional regulation, their ability to control their emotions and to actually create them, and their ability to have empathy and to have a worldly perspective, to recognize others' emotions and how to deal with them, not only in the workplace, but in their personal lives. The learner profile, the portrait of a graduate, takes into account positions and opinions of your community members. Who will be part of our 100-person planning team? We'll have parents, we'll have students, business leaders, senior citizens, teachers, support staff members, administrators, certainly members of the board. We hope to have some civic and service leaders that are part of the community, and there'll be some faith-based leaders as well that will again encompass the planning team who will be providing our feedback. The process that we follow, it's tried, it's true, it works. It's worked in neighboring districts very similar to Medina. It's worked in districts that don't look anything like Medina. We're very proud of the proprietary process that we've created, and we think that it will leave you with a dynamite product, as Tom noted at the onset, that is very, very actionable. So we'll begin with that 100-person planning team. We'll talk to them about vision, their vision for the Medina City Schools 3, 5, 10 years down the road. We'll engage them in a very traditional SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We'll look at what you're doing very, very well, We'll look at the areas of challenge. We'll look at the opportunities that exist for you and those things that can threaten any opportunities of students of Medina City Schools. We will begin to develop what Tom and I call competencies. You may call them character traits. Some folks will refer to them as belief systems. These are the qualities, these are the 21st century attitudes and skills that we know are so essential as students work with us K through 12 and even beyond. We'll not only describe the competencies that are most impactful for the Medina City Schools, but we will also provide actionable descriptors of what those things look like in action. So it's one thing to say that we want students to be students of persistence, but we'll also take it one step further and we'll talk about what does persistence look like in the classroom? What does it look like on the athletic field? What does it look like in an extracurricular activity? What does it look like for a student when they come home for the day? How will a parent be able to identify and work with a student knowing that these are the 8 or 10 competencies that Medina has chosen to focus upon? How will a parent be able to support those things at home in their children and to make sure that they know and understand that they're just as important, if not more so, than the academic content that we deliver every single day?
And when you think of these competencies as well, think of them as a decision-making framework. As you as board members are making decisions as to the type of individuals we want to hire, the type of a curriculum you want to adopt, the type of equipment you want to buy, the type of facilities you want to have, these different characteristics can very much be guiding the North Star as we are making bigger decisions. As a matter of fact, they should be as you make those big decisions.
Certainly. Finally, we'll provide you with a graphic representation of the work of that group, which, as Tom noted, will be 100% embedded to the traditional strategic plan. We'll ask the board, we'll ask the central administration, we'll ask teaching staff to essentially vet the decisions of the strategic plan in the framework of the portrait. So when we think about decisions that are going to be made, resources that are going to be expended, all of us should be asking the question, does this work? Does this decision work to make a student more gritty, to make a student more creative, to allow our teaching staff to be more competent and collaborative? So we'll represent that graphically in a bunch of different ways as part of this project. And we will also work with you and the administrative team on some actionable strategies on how to embed the portrait into the strategic plan, into the daily work of teachers and administrators, so that this does not become a document that sits on a shelf. We've seen it work well in places like Westlake and Chagrin Falls, where we've provided some strategies on how to make the portrait actionable, on how to reward students, on how to communicate to families the fact that it's vitally important and it's not a come and go, here today, gone tomorrow type of document. I mentioned that we'll do some vision casting, with our planning team. We'll ask them to think about a future that gets them excited. We're going to ask them what they believe, what they want Medina City Schools to be in the future. We're going to ask them to envision what the district has accomplished 5 years down the road that gets them excited. We'll move into that traditional SWOT analysis where folks will provide strengths, weaknesses, challenges, opportunities, and threats. We'll use that as a framework for the portrait. And we'll move into some really hard-hitting guiding questions. These are the questions that will help us develop the competencies. Are our students well prepared? Will they be able to contribute and compete in a 21st century society? What are the skills and competencies that will take them there? We'll ask our group to formulate 6 to 8 core competencies that attempt to validate the vision they discuss with us, that builds upon the strengths, the great work that you're already doing, but also embraces some of your challenges. We'll do a lot of reporting out. There'll be a lot of consensus building. And yes, brace yourselves, administrators, there will be a lot of healthy debate. One of the things that we found in our work with other communities and other school districts is this can become a very, very passionate project. And you'll have parents disagreeing with business folks. You'll have senior citizens disagreeing with students. Tom and I have gotten pretty good, though, facilitation-wise, bringing everyone together under a common goal so that by the end, we believe that we'll have a universal buy-in.
And what's so fun is, these are 100 people in your community who you want on your side. You want them to be excited. You want them to be behind future efforts you have. So by engaging them in this way at this point, we're going to get them excited. We're going to get them invested. We're going to get them engaged. So it's really a fun process to see these different groups coming together and you really get behind the schools.
Here's an easy example that we cherry picked from our work with another district that decided students as communicators was one of their 6 to 8 essential competencies. They described a student communicator as someone who is proactive in seeking dialogue to solve a problem. They're able to use diverse methods to spread a message, and they listen to understand and not simply respond. So for that district, if a parent, a stakeholder, a taxpayer were to say, a student who's a communicator, what does that look like in action? We're able to point to it and say, if you were to walk down the halls of our buildings, these are the traits that you will see teachers attempting to educate students to become actionable communicators. Some graphic visuals that we've done. This is just a small sampling of our work with Aurora City Schools, Chagrin Falls, Westlake, and Triway Local Schools in Wayne County. As you can see, some districts choose a more modern, kind of linear version of their portrait. Some choose to get more artistic, like in Chagrin. This will all be work and feedback from our planning team and certainly from the board as we attempt to arrive at a visual that makes sense to all of our stakeholders that will truly represent the work that we're trying to accomplish. At the end of the day, what we're after is a vetting tool, a North Star that will help inform your decision-making, your resource allocation, as we ultimately help you build your strategic plan. We're going to ask ourselves all along the way, the decisions that we make, will it help make our students more, again, collaborative, persistent, gritty, self-disciplined? We've had lots of competencies in our districts. We'll be providing our planning team a compendium of some of those topics and some of those competencies that have come up in other places to help produce some thoughts. At the end of the day, we're going to ask you to commit to a yearly review of your portrait, your learner profile, and your strategic plan. Ask yourself, has your vision or your direction changed? This is an evergreen document. It is to be studied. It is to evolve with evolving times. Are the competencies, that you've chosen still valid and essential as the years progress, as things like COVID hit? As schools, flip upside down with the advent of online learning and the next big thing that's out there that's going to be a disruptor. We certainly think that this project puts you in a proactive position. I commend you for choosing to take on this work. It's not easy work, but we have found the districts that have chosen to partner with us in these projects seem to be better for it. Their teachers understand it, and their community certainly has gotten behind it. So that being said, Tom, if you'd like to talk briefly about the traditional strategic planning process, we could take any questions that the board has.
Sure. So that was very much the portrait piece, which really begins to be the visioning part of the strategic plan at the beginning, almost to phase 1. And phase 2 is then we're going to go to the community and we're going to have focus groups. We're going to have focus groups with students. We're going to have focus groups with your teachers, focus groups with parents, focus groups with community members, different groups. We're going to get together to vet out some more information to build out those strategic planning points. Phase 3, then we take all that information we've learned and now we build out traditional goals, objectives, and action steps. The idea being at the end of this that specifically who is doing what, when, to drive the specific steps that interact with the objectives, which drive the specific goals, to map those out over a 3-year period so that the whole process then comes together.
We know that was a lot to throw at you in about 13 minutes. So certainly if there's any questions, any points of confusion, we'd be happy to clarify.
Now, I just have one question, mainly for Aaron. When we did the strategic plan, when you first were hired, it was a 5-year plan. So, Tom, you just mentioned 3 years. Is this going to last us 5 years, or are we only looking at a 3-year strategic plan?
What we've found is that we can map it out to about 3 years. And then the reality is it begins to get real crystal ball-ish in year 4 and 5. We can certainly project it out, but we found that the way things are shifting so rapidly that around the end of the third year, you're gonna have to do some serious reevaluation.
And we've actually seen that with our current strategic plan, because technically we have another year and we're talking about wrapping that up early because we're ready for new goals.
Okay. Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
There's,
You're welcome.
there's so many changes from the departments that affect academic achievement. Certainly finance changes, they can swing the trajectory of strategic plans pretty hard. So as Tom noted, we've began to shift internally our process. 3 years seems to be the max stretch at this point.
Thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate you laying this out for us, and I'm excited and looking forward to the lively debate that I think you referenced. I'm excited to hear what our community, all of our stakeholders, what they're thinking, and I'm really looking forward to that.
It truly is it's a unifying process. I think it's an interesting time, and I say that in a good way. I think folks are ready to concentrate on school, and I think this will be a great launching point for you all as we move into the summer and hopefully things normalize. To have new goals, a fresh portrait that I think is very student friendly. It's very parent friendly in my estimation as the father of two grade school girls. I want my local school district to be talking about not only achievement, but life skills, skills that will follow my children no matter what the economy looks like, no matter what college or university will look like in the next 15 years. These are skills that they're not going to change anytime soon.
You know, I agree with Becky. I'm excited as well. I hope, though, that you're going to tap into our senior population because I don't want them, they have a lot to add.
Sure.
And I constantly, when I visit the rec center, run into a lot of our seniors, and I don't want them to feel like they're left out. So how are you going to tap into, most of them don't have children in the district. How are you going to tap into that?
We're actually working on that as a district to collaborate together to get names. Amy has been directly working with that, but we reach out to the various senior organizations that are in the community in order to try and get some senior leadership to be a part of this process.
And Ron, your point is well taken. One of the things we want to make sure, all school districts generally have a pretty locked down communication relationship with those that are directly involved in the schools. It's those that are not, those that are voters, right? We need to make sure those are involved, and we will make a very deliberate effort to make sure that those people do have a voice in this.
Aaron, that demographic, the senior citizens, typically are not as tech savvy as younger. So are we prepared to help them? How are we going to help them access, especially if these meetings are done virtually?
Yeah, if we need to, we can set up sites probably at the high school where seniors can actually come to the building, be socially spaced, but can receive some assistance in usage of the technology or be able to use the technology if they don't have it.
Okay,
We've
great.
also found a great deal of success in identifying specific seniors throughout the neighborhood and the community, just calling. Seniors a lot of times love to engage in a phone conversation and just have a amount of phone calls, and there's a real genuine connection. There's an appreciation, and that's worked out really well for us.
Yep. We've even too in some communities provided paper surveying for those that really, would prefer not to come to the high school. They want to do it old school style and have their pen and their pencil, and we can obviously shift the online survey questions into paper format, and we have folks in our office that can tabulate all that. So that's
I think too, when you're using pen and paper, it also helps you to get more in depth.
Sure.
With your thought process.
Yeah, we're certainly willing to do that as well. That wouldn't be foreign to us as part of this process.
I'll tell you, there's something being data gatherers, seniors are getting more and more tech savvy.
They are.
Don't count that out. We've gotten a lot of great data from, they're pretty dialed in.
And if I can just, Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, go ahead. It looked like you wanted to say add something.
If I can, part of this process as well is to actually do just that. We're going to go through this original planning process, but we're also going to be issuing a survey. So we'll be able to tap into a great deal of our community, up to and including senior citizens.
Sure. One of the unique components of our survey too is we'll be able to cross-tabulate. So if the board would want to see just senior responses or just parent responses, we'll be able to break that out and provide it by demographic, which sometimes is very, very helpful. You see who understands your work, and you see very clearly who doesn't. In terms of, Amy's work, it lends itself to easier messaging strategy because we know, right now our seniors aren't understanding what we're doing, or our business sector is not. So there'll be a lot of really strong information coming your way.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear.
I want to thank Chris and Tom for joining us this evening. I think many of the people here on this call are going to get to know them pretty well.
Sure.
In the course of the next several months as you engage in the process. You are welcome to stay on for the remainder of our meeting. However, I understand if you didn't. I do want to wish you guys happy holidays. Thank you for joining us, and we're looking forward to working with you in the new year.
We're certainly honored to work with you all. Have a very happy holiday. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
And the last thing I wanted to mention is that this evening we are utilizing Zoom again for public comment. As I mentioned at our last meeting, it was becoming very difficult to try and sort through the comments and the actual questions for the board. So during the public comment section, the address for the Zoom account will be listed on the social media sites where this is streaming, and we will take public comment through Zoom. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. At this time, Mr. Chambers, Treasurer's Communication.
Okay, I'd just like to say I'm dressed up because it's the only time I get to dress up in the year. And the district bank balance decreased by $5.6 million in November. This is $73.6 million. This is $263,000 below last year at this time. General fund revenues were below last November by $282,000. The combination of state foundation funds and other funds contributed to this decrease. The general fund expenditures were below last November by $1.1 million. Purchase services, capital outlay, and transfers contributed to this decrease. Our sales tax fund balance is down to $2.47 million. I know Valerie is very interested in this. The district spent approximately $1.3 million in November. The largest portion of expenditures was on certificate of participation principal and interest, and on our Root Locker Bay conversion. The rec center capital fund balance remains at $197,000. We did not spend nor receive any monies. The district received I'm sorry, if it only received 500, that would be great. $55,000 in investment income for November. The total collected for the current fiscal year is approximately $362,000 below the total collected last fiscal year at this time. And fiscal year 2017 was the last time the district has seen investment income as low. And finally, the district has a general fund true days cash estimate to be 226 days. Any questions?
Mr. Chambers, are we starting to see, I think you said the investment income was $55,000. Is that higher than the month before? Are we starting to see more income come in now with the economy?
If it is higher, it's slightly higher. The investments are basically we've stopped moving investments around. Our CDs that we have, and we have a large number of CDs. There were a lot of called CDs back in August and September because we were getting around 2% interest on those CDs, and now turning them around, we're getting, if we're lucky, 0.3%. So it's been it's been hard on our investments. And so with the 55,000 this month, we could look that we're going to be roughly 1/3 to 1/5 the amount of what we were receiving in prior years.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chambers. We'll move now to board communications. Ron, go ahead.
A couple things. I appreciate Mr. Chambers. He invited Ryan Nelson from Red Tree to address the finance committee and talked about the investment situation. So that was a lot of good information at the finance committee meeting. So thank you, Mr. Chambers, for having Ryan brief the committee. And the other thing I wanted to mention was the rec center met last Thursday. And as you know, the mayor appointed Christy Moats. She took over for Mike Wright as the building superintendent. And then Christy reports to Jansen Worley, who's the Parks and Rec director. And then Jansen, of course, reports to the mayor. But it's kind of refreshing to see they've already made some changes according to what the community is asking them to do, as far as moving some of the equipment around, the hours, and in some of the repairs. So it's kind of refreshing to see that. And they are looking ahead to try to get more use back at the rec center. And I appreciate their efforts. It's not going to be a quick fix. Most rec centers will tell you that, but I know that they're working in the trenches to try to get this thing rolling again. So I appreciate the city's efforts on doing that. So just wanted to tell you that the rec center is working hard trying to get their membership back up. So thank you.
Ron, I would agree, because I actually received an email from Jansen letting me know about some of the changes and stuff. So, keeping, again, the board and as a community member updated on that. So kudos to Jansen for sure in the city.
That's all I got.
Okay. Any other board members? Go ahead, Becky.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to mention that Rob and I met as part of the policy committee this month. And as you will see, there's some additional policies on the agenda for this evening for first reading. And I'm pretty sure that we are almost all caught up. Dr. Paul can probably confirm that when she presents those later this evening. But we are getting very caught up on all of our policies. So that is pretty exciting. We've been working very hard as a committee on those this year. Our curriculum committee also met, myself and Mrs. Pavlik, virtually this month. And it was once again great to always get feedback from our parents about what is working and what is not working with our district and with the new, at this point, we're on online 3.0. I know the administrators are working with what's going to happen here in the spring. A lot of that, or I'm sorry, not the spring, but 2021, which is just a couple weeks away, when we return back to school from break. And I know a lot of that is dependent on what is going on in the community. I don't want to nag or chirp, as my kids tell me I often do, but I do want to echo Mr. Sable's plea for our community members to do what they need to do to help keep themselves safe, as well as our other community members, so we can get our kids back in school. I also think it's important, as our administration works through what is best for all of our students. We know we want the kids in school. That is our ultimate goal. I think that we also have to weigh that against the amount of learning that we're able to provide. I think it's important to be able to provide learning to all of our kids. And I know that we've been getting a lot more content provided as they are online. So I know it's going to be a difficult challenge to weigh that and to see what is best for all of our kids at that point in time. And I thank our administrators for looking into that and trying to determine what is going to be best for all of our students. Thank you. Oh, and one last thing, just an early happy holidays to everybody in case I don't get a chance at the end. So I hope everyone has a wonderful winter break. It is well deserved. Everyone needs to take a break and take some time to recharge and relax and spend some quality time with their families. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I also just want to add on a little bit with the curriculum committee. I do know that it was discussed that an orientation, and Tina Cassidy could probably, if I don't get this right, but the week of January 11th, orientation for students new to MODA, as well as the students who would be possibly moving towards the hybrid. And the leadership team has also discussed perhaps looking at recording classes in case the internet goes down for some students. And I know that there was correspondence Aaron sent out just recently regarding what to do in case if the technology goes down on the district side or the student side. So Tina, did I get that right? Yes.
Yep, you got that right.
Okay. All right. Good.
Orientation for both that week, so elementary and secondary.
Excellent. Okay.
If I could jump in, Mrs. Pavlik. Thank you, Aaron, and for all the information and for the information on the portrait. The article that I saw this weekend in the Beacon, there's an article about remote and hybrid models of what's happening in Summit County. And I know we're not Summit, we're Medina County, and we're Medina. So it's a different district than Summit County. But there was an article in the Beacon Journal about the effectiveness that they're having right now. And I guess, you know, we know that online probably isn't as effective as in person. We know that. And I understand why we're online. I agree that we did that because the county went in red. But I just want to point out that in Akron, 36% of students earned at least one failing grade on their first quarter report card this year. That's up from 26.8% last year. Out of more than 17,000 students. That means 1,545 more students earned at least one failing grade this year than last year. So there's issues there, you know, in general with online. And again, maybe that's not happening in Medina. Hopefully that's not happening in our district. But I do know, you know, that I think it's important to see if there's a way that we can especially get the kindergartners through third graders back, if there's some way to get them in the buildings. You know, I'm hearing stories from people that do have children that age of just real frustration having their day in front of a computer monitor and trying to operate that way. So I know you're working with your committee and with administrators to look at that. And I think I'm not questioning any decisions that were made. I think we all know we were between a rock and a hard place this fall and had to do what we had to do. But I sure hope that we can find a way to get kids back in here in January, to get them back in the buildings and do it safely. So thank you.
And I just wanted to thank you, Rob, for that. I did see that article, and it definitely is very concerning. And hopefully, again, we're not seeing that in Medina. And I agree with you about getting the younger students back physically. I do know, I mean, if you just think back of when your kids were in kindergarten, and again, also too, all of the pediatricians, and for so many years, we heard about limiting the use of technology to only 2 hours a day. So we're kind of in a catch-22, still trying to educate those students, yet keep them safe. So it's a tough situation we're in, for sure. I just wanted to make a brief note that the facilities committee did not meet in December, but we will be meeting again in January, the first Wednesday, I think, in January, or Thursday. Chris, do you know offhand, the facilities committee, will that be either Wednesday or Thursday?
I want to say it's on the 7th off the top of my head.
Okay,
Yep, it's the 7th at 8.
the 7th. Okay, thank you. Great. At this time, we'll move to the treasurer's action items.
Yes, if it pleases the board. Item number 1 is Treasurer's Report. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the November 2020 Treasurer's Report. Item number 2, resolution for request of refund of carryover funds. It's recommended that the Board of Education elect to receive the automatic refund amount from fiscal year 2019-2020 and maintain a carryover balance with the Educational Service Center of Medina County. We're looking to get back the balance that was paid to them here in the 1920 school year and leave $25,000 with the county. That $25,000 is below the state maximum level. State approves up to $50,000 for this item itself. Item number 3, supplemental to the 2020-21 permanent appropriations. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following supplementals to the 21 permanent appropriations. We have 2 here. The first is an athletic fund. If you recall, a few board meetings ago, the board approved a $50,000 donation from the boosters. And then back in, I believe it was August or September, there was an $8,000 from gallery printing. And last board meeting, the athletic department asked for $43,000, and this is the balance of that those donations. And then we also have monies coming from the county for our coronavirus relief fund of $4,950. This was very kind of the county to give these monies to the school district. I know we used them to buy backpack sprayers for the district itself. We have item number 4, fund-to-fund transfers. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following fund-to-fund transfers. We have both of these are monies for principal and interest of funds. We have our consolidated energy and transportation bonds, and we also have our certificate of participation funds. Then finally, we have item number 5. It's a then and now purchase order. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following then and now purchase order. South of the Square Collision provided service. We did not have a purchase order at the time. We had payment coming from our insurance for this. It went directly to South of the Square, and then which was a portion of the payment, and then we had the balance come to the district. The district will then use that payment to pay South of the Square for this invoice itself. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. I did want to just take a moment to thank the county commissioners again for providing the CARES Act funding so we could get those backpack disinfecting sprayers. That was very generous, and the district does appreciate it.
I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's action items.
I'll second it. My mic was off. Any questions, comments on the treasurer's action items? Anybody from the public, Amy?
No comment.
Okay, hearing none. Mr. Chambers?
Yes, Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
My first item up, is donations. It's recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations as listed. I do want to point out that we have several that are relevant to the holidays, as well as supporting our students during this COVID period of time. Number 2 is an agreement with World Risk Management. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve World Risk Management at the excess cost insurance provider for workmen's compensation, estimated at $43,516, effective February 1st, 2021. This is essentially insurance for workmen's comp that we are required to have. It is an estimated amount with about a 10% leeway. And the reason why is because it's based off of payroll. So we won't know for sure until the numbers actually come through. Number 3, Ohio Guidestone. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the agreement between the Medina City School District and Ohio Guidestone to provide behavioral health services and supportive services to Medina City School District students. These are very important services that are provided to students throughout our district. These individuals bring in specific skills that we don't necessarily hire or have the additional people to handle within the district when dealing with social and mental health issues. These services do occur within the building. They only occur with parents' permission. Sometimes they do extend outside of the school, which in that case we are not directly involved. And of course, that is with agreement with the parents. Number 4, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreement for the 2021 school year. This is for us to utilize the Medina Gymnastics Academy. This is paid for through our athletic department. We do not have the facilities or the space during the winter in order to house our gymnastics team. So we annually rent another location for them to practice. Number 5, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements for the 21-22 school year. The first one is Huddle. Huddle is the streaming event software that the board approved last year. It's what's allowed us to stream all of our athletic events during this COVID crisis. I do want to thank Todd Hopke. This wasn't done because of COVID. It was done to provide more access to our community, to our athletics. Obviously, the timing was perfect that parents, students, and other community members were able to log on and stream athletic events. I know it's a service that I have regularly used. The second one is Renaissance Learning. This is specific for lower level math classes. This is for STAR testing as well at the elementary level. The STAR testing is what we use to benchmark our students and make adjustments to instruction to meet individual students' needs. And number 6, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following revised policies for first reading. The policies will not be presented to the board for final approval and potential adoption until the regular January 21 Board of Education meeting. And I'd like to invite Dr. Kwolek to briefly discuss the policies that are being presented for our first view.
Thank you, Mr. Sable. So the 2 policies up for first reading tonight, the first one involves Title IX regulations. So this goes back to May 2020 when the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights finalized their rules amending the Title IX regulations. So the policy committee reviewed this policy for the last several months, and what we're presenting is the final draft of our policy. And then the second policy is the OTES policy, the Ohio Teacher Evaluation System policy. So this policy by law was to be adopted in collaboration with the Medina City Teachers Association. So we met with them and then presented this to the policy committee as well. So not a lot of major changes in terms of decisions, but again, legal changes that require these two policies to be amended. Do you guys have any questions? Again, it's a first reading, so you have till the next regular board meeting to approve them. So if you have any questions over the next month as well, Becky and Rob are the board members on the policy committee, or Aaron, Dave, and I also sit on the policy committee.
And my last item to present tonight is personnel. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following individuals as listed below, pending completion of all hiring information, and that all appropriate documentation is submitted to the Human Resources Office. I do want to point out that there is an administrative appointment on here. This is for a district prevention coordinator at Claggett. We currently have prevention coordinators at Root as well as the high school. We were in a transition period with the position at Claggett, and Deanna has actually been filling in for us for the last several weeks. So we're happy to have her join our team. The services that she provides and all of our prevention coordinators provide are extremely important in terms of drug, alcohol, vaping services to assist our students, because our goal with our students is not punishment first, it's teaching them. That's why we're in education. So this provides additional services for those students.
I'd like to make a motion to approve these action items.
I'll second.
Any questions from the board on these?
Just one, I appreciate the policy committee, Rob and Becky, a lot of policies coming at us. But the question I have is on OTES. It's not just us, though, with OTES. Isn't it all the districts are going through a revamp of OTES because of COVID? Would that be a true statement?
Yes and no. All districts are deciding how they're going to handle teacher evaluations throughout this year. Obviously, with being online or in a hybrid schedule, it makes it very difficult to get directly into teachers' classrooms in order to do evaluations. We've been collaborating with MCTA leadership in order to make those decisions. The second part of the question is there is an OTES 2.0 that is being released by the Ohio Department of Education. We are not yet transitioning to that. And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think next year we have to.
Yeah, I think what Ron's saying is true. Because of COVID, lots of things are changing. So districts were supposed to transition to OTES 2.0 this year, but that's been delayed. But Ron, you're right. Every district you have to use the Ohio Teacher Evaluation System to evaluate teachers. So.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all the work the policy committee and you, as Dr. Kowalik, is doing. So thank you.
For sure. Amy, is there?
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Sable, I just wanted to double check as well that all of our prevention coordinators, we do receive some grant funds, correct, to help cover the cost for all of our prevention coordinators?
We do. We're in a fortunate position where we've been able to receive grant funds, not just for those 3 positions, but also a security position in the district.
Thank you.
Amy, is there any comments from the public on these items?
Nope. No comments.
Okay. Hearing none, Mr. Chambers, will you call roll?
Yes, we have Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we've come to the public participation of the meeting. Community members wishing to address the board are asked to abide by the following guidelines. Attendees shall register their intention to participate in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. After those that have registered have spoken, if time allows, the board president will ask for public participation from all other attendees. Please state your name, address, and affiliation. Please keep comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. And all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. And I believe, Amy, you were going to put something across the screen?
We don't have anyone join that Zoom meeting.
No, no one.
Okay. Okay. All right, then. At this time, I would like to make a motion to move into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, demotion of a public employee or official. And joining in that meeting will be Chris Kwalik, Jim Shields, Aaron Sable, and Dave Chambers.
We also will have Derek Tauster joining us as well. He's our legal representation.
Oh, okay, thank you, Aaron. And I would like to also add there will be no action taken after we leave executive session.
I'll second.
Mr. Chambers?
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst,
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg,
Aye.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
We have another.